Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Bite-Sized InfoSec. Um, so what do we have tonight? Um, I'm currently in Palmerston North for business, so got a little hotel room, went round the quarter, got a takeaway curry, it's a lamb madras with garlic naan. So and it's rated outside, so I think this sort of quite suits the weather and whatnot. Um, so I'll just get all this set up, open up the naan. Yeah, so I hopefully enjoyed the first episode. We're now up, this is episode number 2. Doing it only, the next day, but hey, seems to work out alright. So here we are again. Thing is, this time, this food is most probably a little bit more than I had last time. So I just need to wonder, set the standard, whether I need to eat all the food before I stop talking, or whether I can stop talking before I finish the food, or whether I should keep trying to finish them both at the same time. Maybe provide some feedback on Twitter or in the comments. Not sure if I'll read them or not, but if you think I need to actually finish all the food before or not I talk. But we'll say sort of how far we can go. And I'm also going to get some mentioning on how I eat and mix my curry, and whether I'm mixing it with the rice and using the naan correctly, because I'm sure everyone has their own way of sort of eating and mixing their curries. Yeah, this is just from the name of a store I can't remember. It was a takeaway. It was in the mall. I'm sure if you go to the mall in Palmerston North, you'll find this place. It's just like any other sort of curry place you get in a mall fast food court type thing. Hits the spot, nothing flash, but the sort of quality you are getting. So I suppose I should sort of mention actually what today's topic is. I was reading Krebs on Security's blog. I think it was last week, maybe the week before. Can't remember. But the article at the time sort of stood out, and what that article was about was Krebs had actually started to hear some rumours or anecdotes that people are actually being fired for failing, phishing tests. So phishing tests, thing where you either run them internally or contractor at a certain company, and I've done some of them. And what you do is you'll set up a nice fish, and you basically try and bait the people of the organisation to perform an action for you. Or doing something that will give you their creds, or something like that. And from really sort of low sophistication stuff, and not even trying, getting 30% sort of providing you creds is not actually a particularly high or difficult bar to reach. And these sort of things, there's a lot of people who do fall for it. And yes, we do them. I see them as part of training, security awareness. I do not believe there should, other than, and I don't even think with these things that people should be called out for explicit training if they do fall for it. And preferably, when I do it, I prefer that we don't actually give the list of users who actually click through to the customer, because that's sort of not what we're trying to do, and I don't think it's actually helpful if we start reprimanding people or firing them. It's more, I see it more as a overall thing of sort of whether sort of an organisation's security awareness is getting through. Helps as an education tool, maybe before you do sort of a security awareness week. But then also it shouldn't matter if someone does get phished, because your processes should actually be stopping any bad stuff actually happening. And if you're relying on people to be secure as part of your organisation's security posture, I think you've failed. Because I would never trust a human to sort of be secure against social engineering and whatnot. Sure, I'll raise my hand and say I'm most probably better than the majority of the people for sort of being some sort of social engineering, sort of the greater term for all this sort of with what phishing fits into. Most are a bit less likely to fall for it, but if you put a good enough social engineer with me, I'm sure, like most people, I'd fail at some point. Hopefully I'd get a lot further than most people, just because of my increased awareness, my additional level of sort of paranoia, because I am in the security industry. You seem to just sort of get a level of paranoia sort of going along with that. But I don't think it's fair to assume that any person can be secured. So you've got to make sure you've got the processes in place that stop it from being a bad thing. So you look at the whaling sort of schemes that are out there. Why can one person do and authorise $100,000 transaction or something like that? Why doesn't the system actually put in place more barriers? Actually, someone else has to log in and actually approve it. Actually make the system stop the stuff happening for the whaling. Phishing for Krebs. Just 2FA everything already. Just multi-factor auth stops most of these credential harvesting attacks. Yes, if it is SMS or the sort of the Google auth, TOTP, time-based one-time passwords, yep, that's still phishable, but it's going to make it a hell of a lot harder. It's not going to be, you're actually going to have to be really wanting to go after that organisation or that person to sort of put the additional framework in place to actually get around SMS or TOTP. You've got to move from low-hanging fruit to an actual target. And for the people who are actually going to be a target, like, Google's done with the journalists for the sort of Google apps, they're recommending and have sort of the journalist thing where they say use U2F tokens. Because currently, as far as I'm aware and from what I've read, is U2F is unphishable. So with that type of thing is, U2F everything. Just U2F everything. It's going to make a job's hard. A lot of the phishing is going to stop because what are you going to get from this? You're going to get a username and cred. You can't get the U2F token. It's not going to be there. So that's the actual solution. Rather than trying to fire someone, put U2F in place. For sort of money going out, make a second person actually have to go in, log in and approve it. Because if two people sort of fail for it, there's some checks and balances and people actually talk if this is out of the ordinary. So now you've got to sort of get two people, if you've got two people to approve something, you now need to fish or sort of get two people to sort of sort it out. So, and also I haven't had a chance to actually play with it or set it up yet. Don't really run a big Windows network. Is the sort of the U2F keys now. Microsoft has added it as an inbuilt authentication mechanism, part of Windows 10. You can either use it, type in your username, your password, put a U2F token and touch it. Show that you're actually there, show that you've actually walked up to your desk. It's not just someone doing it. Also, I think for hospitals and stuff where, you know, passwords being locked out can be an issue. They've said, hospitals, hey, just use the U2F token. It's much more secure than leaving all your computers unlocked in healthcare and hospitals. Give each staff member a U2F token. Chances are they're already carrying around a lanyard or such, like with all their their building access cards. Put a U2F token on that. Now they can log into all their machines. It's maybe a couple of seconds more. They don't need to remember a password. No one can shoulder surf. No one can shoulder surf you. It's there. It's done. Tap it. I mean, there are now sort of NFC U2F tokens or Bluetooth U2F tokens. The fact of actually putting it into a USB port has actually diminished as well now. You can just touch and go, like, I've got NFC U2F tokens for my phone. It's also Bluetooth ones, I personally don't have any Bluetooth U2F tokens. It's a little bit of an issue having a battery in them, but hey, Google sort of rolling out their one. They've had to replace a lot of them recently because there was an issue in the Bluetooth stack. For the tokens, my understanding is yes, it's a vulnerability, but the attack vector and such like was such that yes, you're still more secure using this Bluetooth token with the vulnerability than you would be if you turned U2F off on your account. And that's a big thing that people need to remember, is just because something was vulnerable doesn't mean it's useless. You can do security in depth, with the Bluetooth tokens. You had to be, to sort of exploit them, you had to be in range while they're sort of doing the pairing. And the chances of you actually being in range while they're doing the pairing, for most of it, is actually quite unlikely. Because most of the time most of these sort of attacks are remote. They're not for people who are actually local. You're not being red teamed. Because if you are sort of actually if you really actually have to worry about physical security and people around you, that's a whole other kettle of fish that most people don't actually have to worry about. So it's not in their risk model, it's not in their threat model. You don't put the effort into what's actually needed. Think about the security in depth and use it well. And, like this for a lot of the jobs, if people patch their computers well, don't use default passwords, that will stop a lot of sort of hacks, and it'll make my job a lot harder. Because a lot of the job is finding out, what's unpatched, what still has default credentials on it. Because on the most part, that is what we're using to get in, and that's what's being used to pop you. That's what the script kiddies are using. Sure, if Mossad wants to massage you, they're going to massage you. But, again, who's actually worried about Mossad? It's like, yes, Mossad could Mossad me. I'm actually not too worried about Mossad, because if they're going to Mossad me, they're going to Mossad me. There's not much I can do about it. I can try my best. Try to make the job actually have to put a little bit of effort in. But a lot of security is just not being the last hanging fruit. And coming back to the people is actually the topic. Go back to Krebs' article. It's like, I think it's unfair to punish people for just failing for phishing. Without trying, we can get 30% click through of Krebs. We can come back again, run the test again, still 30%. People are just trusting. It's a fact of life. It's psychology. People want to trust. They're not, talking to someone today at work, my mindset is like, not how do I build it? It's like, how can I get around this? How can I hack this? How, most people just, in the way they think, is a trusting way of thinking. Heard an example of an organisation. They had some people who actually fell for some real phishing attacks. They had some one-on-one training. They had sort of the signs explained to them. They knew what they're looking for. Sort of, it was trying to done in a supportive way, not a sort of a demeaning way. Organisation then ran some wider scale phishing, and guess which group? So you had the group of people who had the remedial phishing training, and you had the group of people who hadn't had the remedial phishing training, and the group that had the highest percentage of people who fell for the phishing were the people who had the remedial training. It's just the way they think. People just want to be trusted. Because wearing a tinfoil hat all the time is quite time consuming. It requires a lot of brain cycles to do. And it's just nicer not to have to worry about everything all the time. So, yes, that's sort of what I'm thinking about. I don't think it's right to fire people on phishing. You should be putting your processes and systems in place that had security and depth, and humans are just one layer in that security and defense. They're not all the layers. Because, when a antivirus misses a virus, people don't necessarily turf it out. That they keep using antivirus. They don't go, oh, antivirus has failed in this instance, I'll throw out all antivirus. You don't, because the way contracts work, people can't fire the antivirus vendor on the whole. Or a WAF misses something, but hopefully you've coded your application in such a way that a WAF missing something doesn't mean you've got SQL injection. A WAF does not solve SQL injection or cross-site scripting for you. It just makes it harder to find and do. Because I wouldn't rely on a WAF, because there's that time that someone's going to configure it differently, or someone's going to have to put a bypass in because of something. Security depth. Have a well-done app. Have a WAF in front of it. Don't fire your staff if they fall for phishing. Because I just think it's wrong. And it sets up. Security sort of does have a bit of a bad name. They're quite often seen as the no people. And now if we're going to start telling HR to start firing people because they fall for phishing, it's actually going to start putting up more barriers between the general public and the security community. And that's wrong. I mean, for the security actually to get better, initially the security community needs to work with sort of dev and test and BA and the business better to actually get better outcomes. You can't just say no to everything. It's going, providing an alternate solution or an idea that helps cover your no, but helps the business actually move forward. So that way you're actually moving and trying to improve things and not be seen as the no people. Because if you reach out and be helpful, people are going to, instead of, security finding it, people hiding things from the security team, they might actually come and chat to the security team, try and fix it before it becomes a problem. So, yeah, I think, make the security team better, more sort of inviting to the rest of the community and people in general. So that was a nice slam address. Yeah. Hit the spot. So that was the end of episode 2 of Bite-Sized InfoSec. Make sure you like, subscribe, notification bell, do the Twitter stuff. We've got a Patreon account. So yeah, make sure you do all that. And I'll see you next time on Bite-Sized InfoSec.